Between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Welcome everybody, and first of all, so very sorry to hear about Steve Curtis, and our condolences to Steve's family and friends. Never want to start a programme off like that, so we're going to have him very much in our thoughts as we move to Oulton Park, the halfway stage at the end of today's race. And a delight once again to be joined by Jack Oliphant. Hello Jack, how are you?
I'm not bad, yes, thank you very much, Richard. It's yeah, Oulton Park, a local circuit for me in real life, and it's always nice to come back here on the sim. It's unlike Castle Combe a week ago, it's actually one of the most popular circuits we have here at VRRC. We seem to come here every other championship, if not more often, which goes to show that you know, it is living up to its hype as a driver's circuit, and one that gives us good entertainment as well, actually.
For sure, the great thing about doing it virtually is you don't have to queue to get out for an hour.
Yeah, very true. Even though the house is only 30 seconds away, it has taken me an hour and a half to get there before.
Yeah, I do love Oulton Park. I don't know, it's a long drive up from London, particularly on a Friday, but it's always worth it when you get here. One of the tracks that I particularly love Saturdays, when you can walk around the whole circuit and chat to the fans and watch the different vantage points. It's probably one of my favourite visits of the year, I've got to say. Really looking forward to today's racing, though. We've had, as I closed off last time, with 6 different race winners so far, 3 different pole setters. Are we going to get somebody doubling up this round? I think we might well have that, Dan.
Well, yeah, and some of the drivers that are going to be gunning for that are the likes of the drivers that are on your screen right now, actually. Joel Lask, who had a fairly dominant round, it has to be said. He ended up taking home the most amount of points after, I think, coming second in the first race and doing pretty well in the second. Elliot Dalton-Ayres won the first race by a dominant display, yeah, he actually went on to score the second most amount of points. And of course, Josh Martin, who finally got his moment to shine in the commentary box once more after we had a chat to him after the second race. He came out of it with the 3rd most amount of points in the championship, so sorry, out of that round. So actually Castle Combe serving those 3 drivers particularly well. There were a few naughty boys, unfortunately, on the naughty step with some track limits behaviour going out here, there and everywhere, but luckily, Richard, at Oulton Park, do track limits pretty much just get spat into a wall, so I'm sure they'll feel it if they do that again.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And the Oulton Park, for real, of course, has now got that lovely, great big gravel trap runoff, which I think is going to be conducive to quite a few rollovers and yellow flags when we get the Toka package there. We get enough of them anyway, but the real world scenario, I think that the so-called improvements, would be interesting to see how that all panned out. But yeah, absolutely right. It's close quarters. It's probably the nearest thing you get in the UK to racing on a very old school, old style track with, you know, the beautiful setting, plenty of ups and downs to test the drivers, and yeah, should be a great day's competition today for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, no, looking forward to it really. It's I always sort of liken it a little bit to Zandvoort, where I remember going to a test day at Zandvoort once, and they said, if we don't have track limits here, if you go off, you're in a sandpit, so good luck, don't go off. And it's sort of Oulton Park, although the Brits don't really have that sort of sense of humour or that sort of relaxed nature about it, you do get the impression that it would be here if they said it anywhere. But of course, we not only just covered the top 3 in the last round, we've got the championship to look after, haven't we, Richard? And I believe, hopefully, Richard will be able to put that on our screens right now, and you can take us through it.
Yeah, thanks very much. So, 3 rounds complete. Joel Lask, who was top scorer last weekend, tops the standings, 14 points clear of Nicky Taylor. Nicky hasn't had a win yet. Is he going to put that right today? We have to wait and see. Tom Churchhouse is a very impressive third on 72, 4 points behind Nicky Taylor. Then Josh Martin, fourth from Brad Smith. John Higgins for Hills Motorsport is next up on 54. A brace of 53, 7th and 8th. Andy Carroll, who we'll be riding around with in a few moments. Nathan Smith is 8th with Craig Curtis, and the top 10 wrapped up. Believe it or not, after one event, Elliot Dalton airs into 10th position. So how much higher is he going to climb after today's race? Remember, he's only done one of the 3 events. Great to have him back, and he was driver of the round last time out. 11th is Chris Blakey from Johnny Ogden. Next up is Lee Piercy and Kenny Press. Thomas Potter, the Teapot, 15th. 16th is John Jones. I'm going to be going down to John's part of the country soon. I believe it or not, the Isle of Wight next week for my holiday, so Andy McKeon will be back with you. But enough about John and my travels. Adam Lyle is 17th from Zamfir Radu. 18th, Paul Laramie in 19th place. And then Sam Milner wrapping up our top 20 in the Paradise racing machine. See also on the graphic we've got the amounts of ballast that are allocated to each driver, and you'll see that 21st Matt Smith doesn't have any ballast, but he does have 11 points. Simon Thorpe is chasing him, 4 points down. Stu Henderson, who's had a couple of promising starts in the racing so far, he's next up on 4. Alec Irongar, I think, is back with us this weekend. Welcome back, Alec. Got 3 points, as has Sam Walton. Last of our point scorers, Mark Stokes. Debut man last weekend was Dave Heasman. He'll be looking to get off the ground in this event to get some points, and 28 is Julian Alwandi. So that is how they line up coming into the racing today, with Joel Lask on 45 kilos of ballast, 90 points. He's got 5 kilos more than Nicky Taylor, who is in 2nd position in the championship table. More of that as qualifying and racing, of course, gets underway. Here's the track map for you of Oulton Park. If you've not been here before, very well worth a real world day out is Oulton Park. Whether it's raining or sunny or otherwise, doesn't matter about the weather. It's a terrific circuit, and one of the few where you can actually watch inside and outside for the majority of the track. Close racing guaranteed, and in a moment or two we'll have the hot lap for you. Any thoughts on Oulton Park? I mean, whereabouts are you based, Jack? It's actually a local one. We'll come back to that because I think we will go into a hot lap. So plenty to talk about here at Oulton Park. Let's go and have a ride around the circuit, courtesy of Andy Carroll, who comes through virtual Deer Leap, uphill and ready to cross the line. And we are underway for our lap, heading down towards Old Hall Corner, the very tight right-handed corner. This is where you get a bun fight. I'm sure we will on the opening lap, with 3, maybe 4 cars abreast as they make their way down the avenue now into Denton's, then into the left-hander at Cascades, watching the run off to the outside of the circuit, right-hand side of the track, then back along Lakeside. You can't see the lake, but it's behind the trees to the left. Then we go round Island Bend, so into the hairpin, rather than using the full Shell Oils corner up the other end. Out of that, very quickly out of Island, through Falstons, up to Hilltop, which you can see very clearly now, and then downhill into a potential passing opportunity into the Knickerbrook chicane. And we haven't got a second commentary position there, but we do have in the real world. So out of Knickerbrook, then it is heading up Clay Hill. So you can see the footbridge, which I think has just recently been replaced. We're heading up Clay Hill now, under the footbridge, heading up towards the double apex right-hander at Druids, which we'll see in a moment. Here we come, turning in now. Grab the first apex, just a little bit wide. Grab the second apex, and then it is full steam ahead under the Paul Warwick Bridge, heading up towards Lodge Corner. Another potential overtake here at Lodge, the right-hander. Only if you've made a mistake, probably, or if the driver in front's made a mistake through there. Grab a little bit of the exit, down through Deer Leap again, and that will see our virtual lap of the Oulton Park Island circuit, courtesy of Mr. Carroll. Super job by Andy Carroll, 1 minute 32.833. and the times have been on par with that in the practice session, which Andy was second. Looking at the time screen at the moment, Elliot Dalton seems to have been quicker since I've been online a little bit earlier on. Qualifying is underway, and I'll come back to that question that I had for Jack. How near are you to Oulton, mate? Is he there? I can't hear him. Qualifying is underway. Jack will.
Sorry about that. I
hello.
muted myself, Richard. Apologies
I didn't
about that.
Didn't know if you were sneezing again like last week.
No, but I had muted. It was the same effect, basically. Yes, no, it's well, Oulton Park is actually based in Little Budworth, which is effectively just a little forested area with a tiny little village which has one pub, and I think that's about it. It has a good pub quiz though, to be fair. And we walk the dog round there, so we're about 3-minute drive or something like that, which means that you can quite often hear. We're close enough that you can hear the circuit very clearly, and not close enough to get the free tickets because of it. So
close enough that you can hear the noise and you could get it closed down if you wanted to.
Well, we can complain about it, which we don't, because obviously we enjoy the racetrack. It just so happens that a lot of people who moved here since it's been built have decided they don't like it, which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, the virtual world doesn't have those sorts of noise restrictions and nonsense that the real life has to do with. And Elliot Dalton is currently top of the timing. And of course, Andy Carroll, who was our chauffeur on that particular hot lap, a race winner from last weekend in race 2, was last weekend. That's catching on with me. Last week, I should say. And he'll be hoping to take that kind of momentum into Oulton Park. He's doing quite a good job, Richard, because he's in third.
He is. Josh Martin had a little bit of a grassy arse moment there and manages to get it all collected up again. I just marvel at the realism of the visuals that you see now on these circuits. It is very much akin to being there. Minis at Oulton Park, a little bit like Janetta at Oulton Park for me. He tends to have a few incidents. So, I mean, we've had roly-polies and all sorts of things in the minis over the last couple of seasons. And I'm sure we'll get more of the same today. You're talking about noise complaints. I might get one from next door because I can hear my neighbour, Jean, next door neighbour, who's in the room the other side of the wall where I am. So she might have to stop work if I'm shouting and hollering. So there might be noise complaints from this end.
Well, hopefully they'll understand. If they do start having a go at you, Richard, just send them a link to the broadcast and they'll understand. And they'll get excited as well. I think ultimately, I remember being in the holding area in Janetta's at Oulton Park on the Tocker package, and the minis have gone out and they've had 3 rolls in one race or something stupid, and we've been sat there for an extra 40 minutes. And I wouldn't make light of it if anyone was hurt. Everyone was absolutely fine, obviously, but that just meant that we were sort of sat there waiting forever. And I think our race got cut short at the end, which has been a shame. But it's a spectacle, like you've just been mentioning quite a lot, and hopefully the drivers will put that spectacle on here tonight as well. There is Craig Curtis, just outside the top 5 for the time being, but satisfyingly inside the top 10. Josh Martin currently at the wrong end of that top 10, with Lee Piercy in 9th, Paul Laramie in 8th, Brad Smith in 7th. Once a championship contender, are we still calling him a championship contender? Richard, he's all the way down in 5th and 20 points behind first.
He's got to be, isn't he? Say a halfway stage tonight. So I think it's going to be dependent on what he can deliver today. But he's there or thereabouts. Top 10 at the moment, 7th position, not too far away. But of course, the drivers he's got to keep an eye out for are ahead of him. So your likes of Nicky Taylor, your Joel Lass, Elliot Dalton is going to want to try and get in the mix. And incredible, wasn't it, that Elliot got into the top 10 on one evening's racing?
Yeah, well, that just goes to show how quick he is, honestly. Like, it's for anybody who's used to watching the broadcast, that won't surprise many people, to be honest, because he is absolutely rapid, and front-wheel drive is a bit of a specialty for him. He's pretty quick in anything, but as soon as you put him into anything that looks like or resembles a touring car, he's gone with the wind. He's up right at the front of the order, and there he is again in 2nd place.
Excellent stuff. So, yeah, Elliot Dalton there. 2nd, Nicky Taylor, looking to try and be the first man to double up on poles. Remember, he took pole position at Donington Park, the first of our CAMMUS JCW mini car powered by Phoenix Racing events. The Silverstone poleman was Tom Churchhouse, and Nicky Taylor taking the pole in the 3rd event. So it was Lask, Churchhouse and Taylor. Taylor not only looking to double up, but make it 2 on the bounce here. And this is what he did last week. Went out, set the very early benchmark, carried that through, but hasn't had a win yet. So this could be the track where he manages to pull that all together and get his first win. As we have a quick look at Chris Blakey in the number 27. The Automac car, and I normally do a wakey wake. Here comes Blakey. That used to be for Blake Anglesey in the Ginetta. So Blake Anglesey won't be very happy if he loses his mantra. But Chris Blakey fourth at the moment, so none too shabby. Chasing on the timing screen, Joel Lask, who is in third.
Chris Blakey, I tell you what, he's doing a lot sort of better than we tend to expect of him. I don't think that sounds a lot harsher than I mean it to be, but he's been very, very quick, and he's beating a lot of people that we quite often think would maybe be ahead of him more often than not, like the likes of Josh Martin. Nathan Smith's been very quick. Brad Smith, obviously, we mentioned already. Tom Churchhouse this season, for the majority of the time, well, the first 2 rounds particularly, he was very quick indeed. He's all the way down in 18th, though. Matt Smith as well. So there are a number of drivers that we probably haven't seen. Thomas Potter, who have pace. We know they are quick drivers, but Oulton Park is a bit of an enigma, isn't it? It's hard to get right. It's a big momentum circuit. You only need to put one wheel off in the wrong place, and it all goes wrong. And obviously with some fresh tyres on, maybe people have got into a bit more of a rhythm. Just going back to Nicky Taylor, Richard, you probably said it far too many times, as well as me and Andy have in the virtual world as well. Oulton Park, if you want to be on pole anywhere, it's here, isn't it? Because it's so difficult to overtake.
Yeah, absolutely right. He needs to get those points in the bag. And I think from his perspective, grab the win. It's the fact that he hasn't had a win so far is he's only missed, I don't know, I was thinking 14 points the gap between himself and Joel Lask, and Joel keeping him within watching distance at the moment, being provisional third on the grid. So it is going to come down to those two. But Nicky can sneak it on the last round. Remember, we've still got Croft next week, which sadly I'll have to miss, but I'll be back for Anglesey. Had a real world booking for Anglesey today, which is nice as well. I'm going to Anglesey twice this year, which I can't wait for. Then we've got Thruxton and Brands is our last. Brands Hatch is our last of the current campaign, our 8th round. So we've got those events all to go as we see Alok Iyengar, and we switch over in actual fact to Nicky Taylor, as we were talking about Nicky, who is green on his last lap, so having an absolute flyer, and green sector 2 as well then for Nicky Taylor. So he's really getting into a little bit of a groove here. Not only is he quick from the word go, he's still improving, and I think the others are going to have to take watch of this. Let's just hope that he has a better start than he did at Combe.
Yeah, I think he's hunkered up behind Andy Carroll as well, which has given him a nice target to aim for and a bit of a slipstream, Nicky Taylor. So this all points towards an extension of his pole position run, and he goes across the line, and it is exactly that. He beats it by about 1/10 of a second. Green in all 3 sectors, and a few drivers are going to have to work very hard to try and close up that gap anytime soon. Elliot Dalton-Ayres still in 2nd place, Joel Lask in 3rd, Chris Blakey 4th, Andy Carroll inside the top 5, Brad Smith in 6th. Looking down the order, Adam Lyle has gone 3 green sectors as well. He's up to 11th place, and Thomas Potter, who had improved on the previous lap to get himself into 13th, finds himself demoted down to 14th, but is going pretty quickly here as well. 2 green sectors to his name. He could crack inside the top 10. He needs to find a couple of 10th. Well, actually, he needs to find, a fair few 10ths, actually, to achieve that. And I don't think he's managed it. He got a track limit, probably on the final corner. So Thomas Potter's going to have to live to fight another day. But I'm having a look at his time that he should have been, and I think he probably would have been just about inside the top 10 if my quick maths are correct in terms of adding all 3 sectors up.
Yeah, Dr. Palmer will like virtual racing because it doesn't spoil his grass, does it?
No, he wouldn't get as much money though, Richard, would he? So he probably wouldn't like it.
I'm sure he'd find a way. He's a astute businessman, as Elliot Dalton-Ayres lights up the timing screen with a purple sector 1. This is P2, so are we going to see... You know, he was late to the championship, but it doesn't matter because we're going to get some great racing from this youngster who you might remember last week was talking about, never mind the GCSEs, he's going to come and do some racing. And I think it was probably the right thing to do. His career will be in motorsport. I've absolutely no doubt about that. And, we'll just see how the rest of the sectors go.
Keep talking like that, Richard, and his parents will be right up into his room and turning off the console. Encouraging him as you are. The bad influence said he gets him on pole position, no. So you may well be right, because he's just about pipped Nicky Taylor by 1/10 of a second up into 1st place. And he had a purple sector 1, purple sector 3. His sector 2 was down, so there's still more time out there for Elliot Dalton-Ayres with 1.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, do you know, I love this story. This is potentially our 4th different pole setter, which just shows goes to show how very, very competitive this competition is. Nobody being able to sit down an overall dominance of qualifying. So Dalton is Taylor going to be able to fight back? He's showing orange at the moment, sector 1. So Elliot Dalton, Nicky Taylor on the outside provisionally of row 1. Row 2, Joel Lask, the championship leader, still in that mix. And Chris Blakey is still in 4th place. So Blakey has been consistent on qualifying, 9th, 7th, 5th, and now looking provisionally for a 4th. So always been in the top 10 of qualifying of this series so far. And doing a super job as we look at Brad Smith, the hottest man in the field, he bills himself as.
Well, yeah, we'll let him be the labeler of that one, shall we say? He has got sector 1 gone green. His sector 2 is a 10th or 2 off Elliot Dalton's sector 2 that's just gone, not the purple one. I can't see that information, but he's getting a little bit quicker as Brad, and he's going to come across the line. Is he going to set a better time? I don't think he has. He's still in 6th place. Andy Carroll went 2 greens though in 5th, so he maybe just went a little bit further ahead of Brad Smith. And looking elsewhere, Tom Churchhouse is on a green sector 2, and we've cut to him now, Richard.
Yeah, so Tom Churchhouse, remember, running strongly in the championship, 3rd position, but wallowing in 13th. Unlucky for some at the moment on the timing screens, but starting to put in some good ones. Is he going to be able to make this jump through? He's on the last lap. It's his last chance saloon for Tom Churchhouse. Is he going to be able to move up the order? He's had a 6th position pole, obviously, in our second event, 12th last time out, and he's actually now down in 14th position. So it's going to be a tall order for him to try and get a little bit further up. Mid-grid perhaps with 2 races, but that's not going to score him any big points in the racing. As we switch over again to look at Brad Smith. And again, that sort of line that we mentioned that he puts in his driver's CV, if you're a real world driver, it really does help the commentators, help build your personality up, that sort of thing. So it's a good thing to catch on, a good memorable thing. We'll see where Brad is going to wind up. P6 at the moment.
Yeah, we've said that quite a lot, actually, me and Andy, over the past couple of years. You sort of want to have a trait almost, and if you can self-label your trait, obviously you get control of it. Sometimes we give other drivers traits that they maybe don't particularly like, but it makes us remember them. So Joel Lask on green in sector 2, not so quick in sector 1. He's coming to the pits. I think everybody seems to be coming into the pits. Tom Churchhouse is green sector 2. Kenny Press, Josh Martin has just been demoted down to 16th as Kenny Press came across the line just before. Checkered flags have been waved in front of pretty much everyone though, and I think the only person that could potentially get a little bit of an improvement, Johnny Oulton, has gone green in sector 2. We'll see him come across the line. I don't think it's going to be cracking into the top. Oh my days, it's into 3rd place. Well, I didn't finish the sentence.
And the reason he did it was because I'd already written down the top 6 with him out, not in it.
Yeah,
and that always happens. I guarantee that will happen every round.
Yeah, always helpful, that one, Richard, isn't it? Well, while you rewrite the top 6, we'll shoot to a very quick advert break before we go and speak to Elliot Dalton.
Well, our thanks to NGK bringing you the spark at Oulton Park. I won't get any more cheesy than that. Let's go to the pole man. Many congratulations, Elliot Dalton Ayres. Congratulations, mate. How are the studies going?
Very well. Yeah, just almost setting times to do like revision and obviously practice, and it seems to be working off seems to be working so far. You know, I got pretty good grades, and I seem to be doing well in this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Best of both worlds. Yeah, but, yeah. One of these all-round sportsmen, good at exams and good at everything else. How surprised were you to get into the top 10 of the standings on one event?
Not too surprised. I know where I've been in the past with these because obviously I've raced in VRRC before, but I mean coming into a challenge. Why are the lights coming on? But coming into a new championship. Coming into a new championship is always difficult, especially when you've got people who have been putting a lot more practice on different tracks, getting used to the car a lot more.
You know, timings are you looking at them? How does it work for you in qualifying?
I don't really care about the others, to be honest. I'm just focusing on myself and doing the quickest time that I can do, and that was good enough for pole. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting race. I mean, it's a bit of a role reverse this time for me and Nikki, so hopefully I don't crash out this time. But yeah, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, it is. Isn't it? You've got to be mindful, really, if you have a driver off the start here. Is it somewhere where you've had plenty of poles here on Virtual Oulton?
I've had plenty of seconds, but I've never had a pole at Oulton. Well, I got my first ever podium. I got my second ever podium at VRRC here. So good memories, I think. So yeah, let's just see what tonight brings us.
Excellent. Well, all being well, we'll catch up with you on one of the podium interviews for race 1 or 2, but we'll let you glide away, get a little bit of a breather before we go racing. And well done, Elliot, on taking pole position. 4 different poles halfway through the series. We haven't had a double up yet in terms of a pole position, which again underlines what a great competition it is. So good luck for the race, mate, and thanks for having a natter with us.
Thanks, Rich.
So looking ahead to the race, it's Elliot Dalton Ayres on pole position. Nikki Taylor will line up P2, Johnny Ogden and Joel Lask next up. But before we go racing, a look at what else is coming up in the world of the Virtual Reality Racing Club with Jack.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Richard and Elliot. The World Endurance League, well, you've probably heard me witter on about this quite a lot over the past couple of weeks, and indeed months, actually, because we started it all the way back on 17th of January. We had a Qatar and Imola, 2 brilliant rounds before, well, after this championship, we head to Spa and Le Mans. So we've only got about 5 weeks left to go until our next round, actually, April the 10th and April the 24th. This is basically a way of splitting up our main championships, which, of course, the minis is what 1/4 of for the remainder of this year. Then we have another main round championship, then Sao Paulo, Kota, main round championship, followed by Fuji and Bahrain in September and October. You got a host of cars you can able to drive, as well as trophies for first, second, and third. Driver of the round medals and a full broadcast as well, brought to you by Richard and obviously myself and Andy McEwen, and hopefully Richard if he wants to jump in on the commentary for these things as well. So it is awesome. You can join in. It's free if you are a VRRC member, and if you're a non-member and you want to have a go at 90-minute racing, bit of endurance, and see how you fare against the likes of Nikki Taylor, Elliot Dalton Ayres, and the rest of them, well, you can just join up for one off round at £10. There's also one dropped round as well for season. Not only that, there's much more on the VRRC. There's about 4 different things, actually, that we've got 3 different things that we've got to go through. And the trucks is the next one. We've already had the Nürburgring GP, so it means we're going to Zolder in just under a week's time. 2 15-minute races, live watch-alongs, so you don't get the pleasure of mine or Richard's or Andy's voices, but you do get a chance to actually watch the races as they happen. And it's free entry for not just VRRC members, but the VRRC Discord members as well. All you have to do is sign up to the Discord. Just click the link down in the description below. You'll get straight to it, and it's free entry to drive in trucks around some of the best circuits on the European calendar. If you want to get involved in that, and then qualifying is 15 minutes, then 2 15-minute races, by all means, jump along. And not quite finally, it's the circuit to Spa and the time attacks. The BMW M2 GT2. You got about a week left of this one before we head over to the Porsche 911 GT1 car around Le Mans. Easily, probably the most difficult thing to drive that we've got going on here at VRRC, and see how you can get round Le Mans in the quickest amount of time. But before that, get some practice in the BMW M2 GT2, a brilliant car to drive. Lastly, the Mirror League. If you have been living under a rock, then you might not know that the F1 calendar is about to rear its ugly head. And Saudi Arabia is the first one for our Mirror Leagues. This is basically where we've chosen a 12 rounds to basically on the same day or the same week as the real F1 calendar. We also do a Formula race. Not quite Formula 1 cars. We're going to race in the Formula 3s or 2s, Rich? 3, Formula 3 car. A little bit easier, a little bit more sort of get to grips with it quite a lot quicker. And we'll be kicking that off on the 7th of March when the F1 goes to Saudi Arabia. And of course, there's trophies for first, second, and third. Right, I think that's all everything that we have to run through, Richard. It's about that time we probably start thinking of and looking ahead at what's going on in the first race here at Oulton Park.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think first of all, though, we've got a little bit of a word from our sponsors, CAMMUS. Between the themselves and the third podium step. Let's see whether that will continue. If these two are going to work with each other, the alarm company back machine running well through and under the Paul Warwick Bridge they go again. Always sad to think about Paul. Always remember him when we come here and race at Oulton Park. Past Lodge Corner. Through Deerlit we go again. And the pole position man, Elliot Dalton Ayres, is going to cross the line in front. Nicky Taylor, though, is very much on the case as the top two go through. Joel Lask is in third. Johnny Ogden fourth. So Johnny loses a place from starting third on the grid as they go down into Old Hall Corner for the second time And Elliot Dalton-Ayres actually has got a little bit of breathing space now. So we look at Joel Lask up ahead of Johnny Ogden, battling it out for third place with Carroll behind, then Blakey, Brad Smith and Craig Curtis in 8th, and Paul Laramie, Tom Churchhouse now up into 10th.
It's been a fast and frantic start, hasn't it, Rich? And by the looks of it, Dalton-Ayres has been able to hold on, but Joel Lask doesn't look all too comfortable in third place after having it, getting it off Johnny Ogden earlier on. Obviously, we know that Johnny pretty much, it's an argument to say, only had one flying lap underneath his bonnet. Let's see what his race pace is like and see if he can take it to Lask. It was a little bit more consistent with the times that he was putting in. Andy Carroll, of course, and Chris Blakey have swapped positions as well. Tom Churchhouse has managed to make his way up to 9th place. Brad Smith has slipped down to 10th. So there's been plenty of moving and shaking in that mid-pack. And after that, though, everybody seems to have spaced themselves out. Everybody's got a car or two's width between themselves now, haven't they? And you're starting to probably see the real Oulton Park sort of traits starting to come in now, can't you? Where it's arguably looks like it may well get a little bit processional, but we know that VRRC members don't do processional, Richard. they like to throw everything at it.
Yeah, they do, Jack. And do you know what? I think I said last week, I don't mind a processional race because if you do get one, it means that you've got drivers that are pretty much at the top of their game, all very well equally matched. That's the fact that you have to take. I did expect Nicky Taylor maybe to be a little bit closer, and we might get into like a 3-phase race with the start with Elliot Dalton-Ayres just having a little moment there. 3-phase race where maybe someone could set the pace in the early stage, and then the chasing cars might come on in the mid or closing sectors. But I'm guessing Nicky Taylor won't think there's anything wrong at the moment. We're just maybe having a look and trying to suss out where any chink in the armour might well be, as Johnny Ogden challenges for third place as they go up to Hilltop. We'll see those two cars emerge side by side. Ogden, if he's got the momentum, has got the run, he's got the line coming down into the chicane, is he going to be able to take third position? They're still side by side, and Joel Lask doesn't want to cede it. Lovely bit of dicing between the pair of them.
Yeah, it's going far too wide on the exit, wasn't it, of the hairpin, sorry, which meant that Johnny Ogden got a little bit of a run on Joel Lask. And it's Oulton Park's about the only time, only track you can probably get away with that sort of mistake, really, because he's very, very brave going into the Hislop chicane. Johnny Ogden still can't get up the inside through Druids. It's a very dangerous place to go around the outside there, as that always says. But up the inside is possible, but only if you get the run up the hill, which, again, is very difficult. All this is bringing into play Andy Carroll, isn't it? Race 2 winner from a week ago. After that reverse grid victory, and it's seen the front two drive off into the distance, all of a sudden getting a battle for the first place, a battle for third, all the way down to fifth, and then almost sixth place in its own little world of its own as well. So plenty of action going on here and storylines to be written.
Absolutely right. Yeah, you nicked my line there, really about Andy Carroll getting in the mix and starting to try and make his way through, as we pick up on Nathan Smith chasing Josh Martin, and he goes for a little bit of gravelling or rallycross. It never done rallycross at all, but I'm not particularly sure. Certainly not what we wanted to see from Nathan Smith. So a big shame for him, but manages to get back on, losing a few places now down behind Simon Thorpe. So he's got a little bit of recovery to do, but it's Elliot Dalton-Ayres still out front at the moment from Nicky Taylor. And we're looking at Andy Carroll, busy trying to just hunt down on Johnny Ogden there in the white car with the black top. Not quite as close at the moment to Joel Lask. Now, points-wise, it's very early, obviously, the halfway stage of the season to start thinking about championship points. But Lask here in third place is potentially on for 20. Remember, he's got a 14-point lead over Nicky Taylor. So Taylor's actually at the moment, if we ignore fastest laps, only going to take 2 points out of the championship lead of Joel Lask, and that's not a bad thing. But obviously Joel, so damage limitation for him, but he will want to get into that lead battle if he can, of course, and finish ahead of Nicky in race number 2. So it's all going to be about race 2, I think, these ones, as we said last week, where you finish, the places you climb on the reverse grid race is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, well, I think Joel Lask actually only came 6th in the end last week, but we'll get back to him in a second, because A-Lock Irongar is doing something you don't often see around Oulton Park. That's overtaking someone, and he's gone through on Simon Thorpe into a 17th place. Both drivers keeping it on the circuit. Big puffs of smoke from the rear wheels, and Nathan Smith, who obviously we saw having a little bit of an off earlier on right here at Cascades, has managed to just pull away a little bit as a consequence. There's Brad Smith inside the top 10 with Tom Churchhouse. Again, nice and close doing battle, but again, there is a gap between the likes of Brad Smith and Lee Piercy, Josh Martin, who seem to be having a bit of a ding-dong just behind them.
Yeah, Josh might have to be reliant on the reverse grid race to get a podium, which incidentally was bumped off, wasn't he, last time once all the judicials and everything were sorted out. So Brad Smith facing Tom Churchhouse. Tom qualifying outside the top 6. Brad Smith has gone from 7th down to 10th, which is not great for him. Still 5th in the championship, so the position's really all over the shot, you have to say, at the moment. As things are getting closer again for 3rd place, Johnny Ogden very definitely now closing up on Joel Lask. Goes to the outside of the circuit here. This is an optimistic move. Might just chop back in. He's got to be very, very careful because Andy Carroll right with them. So it's 3 cars now for that 3rd position. 1st and 2nd, Elliot Dalton-Ayres and Nicky Taylor away and down the road. And this time now looking for the inside run as they come into Old Hall Corner. And it's a super move by Johnny Ogden, who gets his nose in front. But there's a little bit more momentum perhaps to be carried by Elliot Dalton-Ayres. They go side by side now, with Andy Carroll right behind them as well. This is great side-by-side action, and Dalton-Ayres has got the run. There's a little bit of hip and shoulders, as my colleague from ITV, Paul O'Neill, would call it, and off goes the erstwhile 2nd place car.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's past tense. It was brilliant, wasn't it? As Joel Lask and Andy Carroll looking to try and take advantage of a little bit of a slow car in front, but it's not happening. I think Joel Lask is probably going to have the pace to drive away, and I'm not sure whether there was enough space, Richard, or whether there was a closed gap, or we don't know from the angle that we got given, do we? But I'm sure the stewards will have a look at that afterwards. But Johnny Ogden, after doing so well in qualifying right at the end, and then of doing so well at the beginning of this race as well, he's seen it all snatched away from him, unfortunately. He's got back on the circuit, but he's down in 10th position now, which has meant that everybody else has bumped themselves up 1 position, as Andy Carroll now finds himself struggling to hold on to Joel Lask.
Johnny Ogden needs to keep that momentum in his head, doesn't he, for the rest of this race and then the reverse grid race as well, because he knows in his mind that he's got the pace around here, as we watch Joel Lask still in 3rd position and looking a little bit safer, but everybody else beginning to close up as well. There's Craig Curtis. Craig trying to close up on Chris Blakey. And still Elliot Dalton-Ayres now a 2nd to the good ahead of Nicky Taylor. Nicky will definitely want to win. I'm thinking championship-wise, probably not too bothered because Elliot obviously down in 10th, having missed a couple of rounds. But Nicky will want a win. Make no mistake about that. Are we, though, going to see Elliot become the first man to double up in terms of the wins? We watched Craig Curtis in that 32 car, the Hyro Motorsport Primex livery. We were talking about Max Coates off air. Max, if you're watching, it was all very polite, I have to say, and complimentary. I hope Max is watching. Or as always, yeah, we do like a bit of Max Coates. Looking forward to seeing him around the circuits again this year and his family. They were looking after the Dragon Sport Scholarship for us a few weeks ago up at Blighton, and then again the final day they did at Brands Hatch. There is the Primex car, Craig Curtis, P6 at the moment. That will, I was going to say, will equal his best. It won't, because he had 5th in race number 1. He's very, very competitive at Castle Combe. A 5th and a 6th last time out. As Andy Carroll continues to try and close in on Joel Lask. Can't quite get as close as Johnny Ogden did. Johnny, all the ones at the moment. The 111 car down in 11th place. And Johnny trying to challenge Brad Smith here. So Brad in the 69 car not had the run that he would have wanted, and Johnny Ogden is actually doing what I said. He knows he's got a little bit of pace around here, seems to be at home with the track, and at home with making a few moves as he goes through Deer Leap once again and tries to put a move on Brad Smith. Is he going to go inside or outside here? He's almost bootlidding him. Going to try the inside run, hasn't quite got enough momentum to do that as they go into Old Hall. And this is where he had his moment off the circuit, or a little bit further down. But he goes side by side again. So Brad Smith in green. Johnny Ogden will have another look. Thinks perhaps slightly better of that. He'll take a wider turn in and maybe get some momentum as they go up towards. I think he has had a better run out of it. But he's going to be on the outside line as we take our blimp shot over the top here. Down towards the island hairpin. And no, he can't quite do it. So again, might want to go for a wide turn and carry some momentum up over Hilltop and down into his lops, but can't quite do it at the moment.
Yeah, Brad Smith parked his car nicely there on the island. Hairpin, didn't he? But Oulton's not done and dusted there. He couldn't quite get alongside to get the breakdown into the Hislop chicane. It's going to have to be another lap behind Brad Smith's luminescent Mini in 10th place for Johnny Oulton. So, yeah, it's just stunting his progress further forward. And like, say, when we saw Nicky Taylor go off at Silverstone and Castle Combe, it was a little bit more of a fight back, but there's more opportunities to actually fight back, Richard, aren't there, around circuits like that? Whereas here, there is pretty much, you have to set up a move about a lap or two in advance. I mean, therefore, it takes a lap or two to get around just one person, which is not ideal for Johnny Ogden, who is not close enough to worry Brad Smith, so he's not even putting him offline through the final corner as well. But it looks like they might have a run going into the first. As where on earth is Brad Smith going? He must have a drive-through. I'm going to have to just wait for Rich Hayden to maybe message in my ear and say whether or not he jumped start. He got a drive-through.
Yep.
Interesting. Not entirely sure why that has happened, Richard, but a drive-through is the punishment. Oh, track cuts, Richard. I didn't. I didn't know that around Oulton Park there were many of them, but I can only assume it's out the first corner and the last corner. That's normally where they bang on about it in real life.
Yeah, well, all we need now, just to add to the reel, is Tim Harvey moaning about track limits, isn't it, really? That's what we get in. And bless him, he's usually right with what he says as well as Tim. I think he might be away on holiday again. He's usually away on holiday, Tim. Anyway, back to the action. Battle for third. Joel Lask and Andy Carroll. Carroll started 6th on the grid, so has made up a couple of places here. That's the sort of thing you're going to be looking for. Still piling the pressure on. Lee Piercy was 9th. Then we go back. Potter. Craig Curtis, Nathan Smith, Alok Iyengar, back with the 32 car of Craig Curtis. And now back to our battle for 3rd and 4th place. Joel Lask seems to be able to soak up the pressure, whether it's from Johnny Ogden that we saw earlier on or Andy Carroll. I keep wanting to say Adam Carroll from the real world, but it's Andy Carroll. Particularly as I've been looking at some old results the last couple of weeks as well, which Adam Carroll was involved with, but 3rd place, I've got to say, Lask looking pretty confident at the moment. A quick look at the gap on the timing tower, 2.5 between Elliot Dalton, Ayres and Nicky Taylor. So that's all looking fairly settled at the moment. He says, not wanting to put the curse of the commentator on. And as if by magic, our director goes to the 2 race leaders heading over Hilltop, coming down the hill into the Knickerbrook chicane, which we used to call the Knickerbox chicane because there is a comms box there. Great place to do a co-commentary from if you ever get the chance. And I'm guessing, Jack, that you've probably done a few stints in there.
I did one at the Fun Cup event for the VRRC, and it was one of my first ever paid real-life gigs from memory, actually, as well, because Andy McEwen couldn't make it, so he offered me the gig. And I turned up at the main race control area where I thought all the media was done, and they told me to go and sit in this wooden box on the outside of Hislop. And I thought, are you sure? And I arrived there, and there wasn't even power, but there was about 17 spiders to keep me company. So, yeah, it wasn't the most comfortable, but I have to say it was one hell of a day and an experience. So thoroughly enjoyable. Hopefully, like these drivers are enjoying their time right now on the virtual track, because Andy Carroll has caught back up to Joel Lask here, and I think Lask. Well, I thought he was going to drive away into the distance, but there's going to be a fight for the last podium place.
There is. We've only still got 9 minutes on the clock, so plenty of time for this to play out. And Joel Lask is still there, but the gap ebbing and flowing. Lask seems to just get a little bit of pressure on him, then applies a wee bit of second wind and starts to get away. But Carroll, with no pressure from behind, we'd be looking at Paul Laramie in 5th position. So Paul trying to put as much pressure on as he can to try and close down. I guess if these guys were getting heavily embroiled with each other, there is Laramie going through. If they get embroiled with each other, they might potentially slow each other up, but we haven't seen any sign of that so far. What we have seen is Adam Carroll closing up, but not really had a proper nibble so far at the 3rd place man. And either way, it looks like we're not going to get any new names on the podium for race 1 at least.
I was just thinking back, we mentioned Andy Carroll being a race winner in race 2 last week, but actually it was only because of some unfortunate contacts, I think it was, in
Yep.
race 1, that he wasn't really in the fight for it in race 1 as well, because he qualified very well. Richard, you probably had the notes better than I do, but this is a continuation from Andy Carroll, isn't it? Not an anomaly for once.
Yeah, he's doing well, putting on a real good show at the moment. And, you know, 7th in the championship stand, joint 7th with Nathan Smith. So, Andy's going to consolidate that. He's actually going to pass. He's going to pass John Higgins, because I think John Higgins is absent this week, which is a shame. John was 6th in the standings, and Brad Smith is down behind these guys as well. So, Andy Carroll's looking at maths-wise getting up into the top 5, and you know that's serious playing, isn't it? As we watch Johnny Ogden now putting Tom Churchill. Johnny Ogden, he's absolutely flying. He's caught Tom Churchhouse now and having a good look on the inside. He thought there was going to be a wee bit of contact there, but I'll tell you what, Johnny Ogden is Nicky Taylor-esque, if I can use that phrase, in terms of his fight back. This is good stuff from him. He hasn't let his head drop.
You can use the phrase. I'm not sure he'd thank you for it, but you can use it. But yeah, Johnny is really very sort of moving and shaking, isn't he? And as I said, at other tracks, he probably would have been back up inside the top 5 by now. But obviously, Oulton Park, the way it is, it means that he hasn't quite managed to do that. But he is now fighting against some really tough drivers. Not to say he wasn't before, but one of them fell off in front of him, which meant he got promoted up to 9th place. And since then, even with his pace, though, he's only able to have moved up one more position and just to get to the back of Tom Churchhouse, which for Ogden will probably feel like it's the worst situation you could potentially have, because he'd probably almost rather be outside the top 10 and get that better reverse grid slot, and then he can go and potentially take that victory. It's strange, really, because I mentioned him about the sort of one last lap right at the end of that qualifying session. Normally, when a driver, Richard, you'll probably be able to back me up here, but normally when a driver can only put one lap together, that's that quick. It's a complete fluke, and you see them moving backwards. It seems to have gone the other way, doesn't it? He seems that his qualifying pace wasn't actually representative at any point of his race pace, because he seems very, very fast.
Yeah, just look, it's the scenario where I think it clicked for him in that last lap, and he's carried that forward into the race. But we're back with Lask and Carroll. So Lask again, just maybe pulling away a little bit from Andy Carroll at the moment. They're still a pair for sure, as are Paul Laramie and Chris Blakey down behind them, and then the gap back to Tom Churchhouse. So it really is sort of 3 pairs, the top 6, with fair gaps between 2nd and 3rd place. And we're looking at the battle for 3rd coming down the hill. Through the chicane we go again, past the bumps and up Clay Hill. So Andy Carroll still trying his hardest to get onto that potential podium position. So championship-wise, there are some ramifications here. This is where I lose the plot, because I'm all right adding up the 5 points and everything here, but then when it comes to race 2, I'll have forgotten what happened in race 1, and I won't be able to refer to them. So ignore the maths for the time we get into the reverse grid race. Dalton Ayres now 2.2 seconds clear, as we see Carroll really getting on the case now, was trying to draw level, can't quite do it, but giving notice of intent to the 3rd place man, Joel Lask. Now he's going to look down the inside. Is he going to get the overlap here? No, he can't quite do it. The camera angle deceiving us ever so slightly there as they go down into Old Hall once again. Now I think he does get his nose down the inside, but there's a wee bit more momentum from Lask again, who holds onto position. Lovely, timely overhead shot here. As we watch this pair, now that move, it's gone again, isn't it? So Carroll's got to try and build up the momentum again. And I come back to what Jack was saying. These moves have to be built up over pretty much a whole lap. Certainly a good, strong sequence of corners now, as Carroll tries to go on the inside, dart down the inside, but it's a tighter exit from the corner. So a little bit less speed being carried through the corner. And he can't gain that, I don't think, unless he does a banzai move on the brakes down into the chicane, which he won't do now. Still 4th position for him, but these guys giving each other a very good workout, which is terrific to see. And here we go on board.
Yeah, I think the realistically, if you want to take a move into the 1st corner, it has to start at Knickerbrook, which we've just gone through. Now he needs to put him offline through Druids. He's not close enough to do such a thing. Then he will have to put him offline through the final corner, and all that might just about culminate in you being able to go alongside them, whether it's on the outside or the inside, going through lodge, but it's so difficult. And I think what Andy's trying to do at looking up the inside, because that's all he's doing, isn't it? He's looking up the inside. He's not actually going for it just yet. Is to try and get that psychological advantage on Joel Lask and try and put him off kilter. We're going to the inside now. That's going to be a lunge if he tries it. Now, he's just trying Joel Lask to make him miss an apex. Filling the mirrors, moving around behind him, trying to make Joel Lask make a mistake so Andy has an easier job of getting around him. But Joel, at the moment, seems impervious to it. With 3 minutes to go, Andy might get a little bit more desperate. Having said that, knowing Andy, he's a very level-headed guy. He'll take 4th place and not really worry too much about it. But he would much rather get on the podium as they go into the island hairpin. Again, Joel Lask parking it on the apex pretty much perfectly. And he's going to be a tough customer to get around, but Andy Carroll's going to give him everything.
He's going to have a go now, isn't he? This could be the late breaking down into the chicane. He's got the inside run. Is he going to see that he's hard on the brakes? Manages to go over the curbs on a little tap on the side of Joel Lask. But now Carroll goes wide as well. They tag again as they go up the hill. So up Clay Hill, back on the grass. Well, goodness me, that was a move and a half, wasn't it? Contact from both sides of the track for both cars. It's bringing, I think, Paul Laramie into the mix, but ultimately now it's Carroll up into 3rd place.
Yeah, I think for me, Carroll needs to give that back, to be honest, because going into the chicane, I know we like to see hard racing, but he just jumped the corner and just jumped into the side of Joel Lask going into the chicane. It didn't look like he was going to be able to get the car stopped and turned, and there still be enough room for 2 cars on the track. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gives it back. He doesn't look like he's got much thought about it, though, does he? I'm sure the stewards might have a word about it as he cuts the corner on the inside and then runs wide on the outside. Andy Carroll's a little bit all over the place here.
Well, Lask down to 4th. That's a 4-point difference between himself and Nicky Taylor for the championship. So Taylor will get the points difference down to 10 points by my maths on this one. But this isn't over yet. And Joel Lask, although he's got Paul Laramie right behind him, will be thinking, yep, I want to get that 3rd position back. 49 seconds on the clock. Does that mean this is the penultimate lap of the race? With Elliot Dalton-Ayres still out front in the 71 car. So Elliot running well, closing up on one of the Smith brothers, I think that is, and possibly might be able to, it's Matt Smith, isn't it, in 24th position. Could find himself on pole position, Matt Smith, for race number 2, the reverse grid race. Again,